Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage John J. DeGioia, President of Georgetown University, and His Highness Sheikh Tamim Bin Hamad Al Thani, Amir of the State of Qatar.
Well, good morning, and thank you all for being here and joining us in Gaston Hall. We are honored by this opportunity to welcome His Highness, the Amir of Qatar, Sheikh Tamim Bin Hamad Al Thani, to Georgetown this morning. Your Highness, it's an extraordinary privilege to have you with us today, and I look forward to our conversation in just a few moments. I'd like to take a moment to welcome the many special guests who are here today and speak to the context that brings us together. I wish to welcome His Excellency Ambassador Mohammed Jaham Al-Kuwari, the Ambassador of the State of Qatar to the United States. His Excellency Dr. Khalid Mohammed Al-Attiyah, Minister of Foreign Affairs. His Excellency Ali Sharif Al-Amadi, the Minister of Finance. I want to thank you for your presence here this morning. And I wish to offer my gratitude to the Embassy of Qatar and the Qatari delegation for their contributions to today's events. You have our deep appreciation. We come together today in Gaston Hall. Throughout our history, this hall has served as one of the most important places for public discourse and discussion here in Washington. And coming together today with a distinguished world leader, we cannot help but recognize our interconnectedness, our shared interest in the issues at stake in this conversation, our shared investment in understanding and responding to global challenges. We know that our world is more interconnected than ever. We now live at a time when, thanks to unprecedented advances in transportation and communications and information technology, nations are increasingly interdependent, people more interconnected, humanity less divided by narrow domestic walls than ever before in history. This interconnectedness makes gatherings like this that much more important. Being global is fundamentally about connecting, about how we connect, how we engage the opportunities of connecting, and how we navigate the challenges as well. Universities have a special role and contribution to make, such as through the dialogue we convene today and through our partnerships around the world. Earlier this month, I had the privilege to be in Doha with my colleagues from the main campus to celebrate the 10th anniversary of Georgetown's presence in Education City through our School of Foreign Service present there. It is in this context that we are privileged to have with us this morning the Amir of Qatar to speak with our community about issues of importance to Qatar and to our world. One of the youngest heads of state in the world, the Amir began his service after his father, Sheikh Hamad bin Khalifa Al Thani, stepped down. Since becoming Amir in June 2013, he has provided steady leadership in a region often beset by turbulence. In his roles, both as Crown Prince and now Amir, he has been instrumental in raising the international profile of Qatar. He has served in top security and economic posts and has been responsible for promoting Qatar's ties in the region, including with such key nations as Saudi Arabia. In 2009, he was appointed Deputy Commander-in-Chief of Qatar's Armed Forces. He's also played a major role in shaping Qatar's contributions to the world of sport. He's a member of the International Olympic Committee, as well as chairman of the Qatar National Olympic Committee, and was a large part of the successful bid to bring the FIFA World Cup to Qatar in 2022. Just a few days ago, and this is his first visit to Washington since assuming his responsibilities as Amir, he met with President Obama. The meeting emphasized the strong ties, commercial, educational, scientific, technological, shared between our two nations, and the commitment we have to addressing the most urgent issues in the region, from terrorism and conflict to engaging Arab youth. Your Highness, we welcome you to Georgetown. We thank you for being here today. We will now begin a conversation, and then we've been able to secure some questions from some of you who were in line, and I'll try to go through a set of questions that I've prepared and then go through a set of questions that we've been able to secure from all of you. Again, thank you all for being here today, and it's now my privilege to engage in conversation with the Amir.
Well, Mr. President, dear faculty, first of all, thank you for having me here. It's an honor. And it all began a few days ago when you were in Doha and we had a meeting and you asked me and you invited me kindly to come to Georgetown. And it was an honor. But I didn't realize that I'm going to be facing in front of me students and faculty, so it's not easy. So I need your help, if there are any questions. But really, it's an honor for me. I'm very happy to be here. Let me just begin by saying, congratulations to all of us that Georgetown has been in Doha now for 10 years. We all know how important this prestigious university being in the region in the Middle East. But we realize how important it is when we see our students graduating from there and trying and playing a bigger role in my country and also in the region. I'm sure some of the students here, we're going to see them having high positions either in this country or back in their country. So I think, as you said, Mr. President, I've been Amir now since 2013. Our region isn't stable. We have a lot of problems happening around us. Thanks to God that Qatar and the Gulf region is a stable, stable countries. It doesn't mean that we should sit back and be relaxed. We have to do lots of works, lots of reforms, and to try and solve problems around us. I've been in this position 2013. It wasn't, thanks to my father, I had lots of advice, lots of help from him. Still, it was very difficult to be dealing with all those issues. I became Amir just 3 or 4 days before what happened in Egypt, the 30th of June. And I had to deal with the situation, not me only, but I was one of the countries, one of the leaders that had to deal with the situation to try to find solution in Egypt. It was very difficult. Unfortunately, I tried my best. I wasn't successful. There are reasons for that. But, I was supposed to have a speech and talk to you on a speech, but I decided, I'll just let it go easy like that. It's much easier for me, and I think it's easier for you to, if you have any questions. I don't want to take much of your time talking, boring you with what I did. I know that some of you have questions to ask me, but let us, since we are in a university, in a very important university, I think if we can concentrate on the importance and the role of the youth in our region, and it will be very, very important because they were the youth that played the most important role in the Arab Spring. And believe me, some of them, many of them, I was surprised when I met them after the revolution from different parts of the countries that stood up against dictatorship. They are very intelligent, they are very clever, and they have a great vision for the future. So we should try to talk about this and how we can help them in the future. So I don't know if I should say anything, but I will be expecting questions from you. So thank you very much, Mr. President. And say it again, I'm very honored to be sitting in front of you here. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So we have been able to pull some questions from the audience. Let me get started, though, first with your visit. You've been here 3 days now. Your first visit in your role as Amir. Tell us about your meeting with President Obama. How did the discussion go? How do you see the importance, the significance of the relationship between your country and the United States?
Well, it was a nice meeting. He was very easygoing, and which it's a personality that I like, and I get along very, very quickly. I think it was a very good meeting. with all the officials here in DC. It's a very important visit for me, first visit for me in my position. We have a strategic relation with America. People talk a lot about military security, but there's something very important that we should talk about and we should also promote more, is the educational relationship we have with America. We have, of course, Georgetown and 5 other great American universities in Doha, with other institutes as well. But overall, the meetings went very well. We had a lot to discuss. Honestly speaking, we were discussing mainly about the region problem, because the region is in turbulence with all the terrorist movements and dictatorship and some war and the war in Syria and Iraq, and what the situation in Yemen as well. We were discussing mainly about those countries. We spoke briefly about how important the relation is between both countries. But overall, I think the meeting went very well.
So President Obama is not the first head of state you've been with in recent days. Shortly before your visit here to the United States, you were in Saudi Arabia to meet with King Salman. Can you give us a sense of how that meeting went and how you would understand the nature of the relationships between your country and the Saudis?
It's for us as a small country in the Gulf, Saudi Arabia is the most important country to have a relation with. We had a historic relationship with Saudi Arabia, very strong relationship with Saudi Arabia, and it is still strong and it will always be strong. And I'll make sure that the relation stays strong with Saudi Arabia. We all know that there's a big pressure on Saudi Arabia with what's going on around the region, that Saudi Arabia is a big country, and they can handle this pressure, and it's their role to try to solve problems around the region. And I'm confident that King Salman and the people aiding him as well, especially the second generation aiding him, I'm confident that they will do a good job, and they'll do, at least I know that they'll do their best. But it's up to us as well to help them, for them to stabilize the region. They have a big task ahead of them. It's not going to be easy, and it's not easy to be successful with what's going on. But the meeting went very well, and I'm confident that King Salman will help to stabilize the region. But it's going to be very difficult.
Place your country's recent growth and development under your father's leadership, but as I mentioned in my opening remarks, you've played increasingly important roles over the course of the last decade. Take us through what this last decade has been like for your country, and how you understand the nature of your responsibility in the region.
Well, first of all, we start off what we did internally, the reforms that we did internally. We concentrated a lot on education. We believe that education is a thing that we should invest in. So that is why we invited 6 of the best American universities in Doha. And also we did lots of reforms in our education system in Qatar. We have a great Qatar university. We improved it a lot. It's been always strong, but we did, we had to improve a lot in it. We had to do, we did a lot of reforms in our country. If you go back 15 years ago, we first started with the election, the municipality election. It was a big thing in our country, and it went well. It's still going. We have also other things to be done as well. One of them is the elected Majlis al-Shura, which is a parliament, and hopefully is going to be very soon. There are just some legal issues and logistic issues to be dealt with, but we are committed to do what's better for our country. My father did a lot for the country. Of course, I'm not my father. Even if I try to be like my father, I cannot be like my father. I should take all the advantages that my father did and try to add in them as well. And as I said, everybody is different. But my father did a great job for his country and for the region, and I am very proud of, and our country is very proud of.
One of the challenges of leadership is there are a set of short-term, urgent matters that require your attention, and then there are longer-term, more developmental issues that require care and attention. How would you differentiate right now the most immediate short-term challenges that you must address, and then how do you balance those with the longer-term questions that your country faces?
Well, I think for the short term that we should address the security. Security is very important. We have economical challenges, we have many challenges, but I think the security due to what's going on around our region. We say we're stable, yes, we are a stable country, but what happens in Yemen and Egypt and Syria and Iraq, it affects us way or another. And the longer it takes, the more effect that we're going to be affected by. There's something very interesting that we are working on very, very hard, and we know that it's going to be a great challenge, is depending on the oil for our income. This has been a challenge. If we go back just 100 years ago, more or less 100 years ago, our country and the country around us were depending on selling the pearl. But after the pearl farming came, and our Japanese friend found this new system, we were broke. So we were in trouble. Now, when the oil came, we started breathing again. In the 70s, we faced a big drop of oil prices. We were only depending on oil. The same thing happened in the 80s and the 90s, and now also the drop of the oil prices. Yes, we are a rich country, but we have to see what we did to be in this level. In mid-90s, when my father first took over, the oil price was so low, how much was it? $8. And we were in trouble finding money to pay salaries. People don't think that we are a rich country. No, we had our difficult moments, but the way how to challenge them now is how to have other resources than the oil price. We know that one day that we will not be depending on oil and gas. When? I hope it's going to be long, but I don't know when it's going to be. But we have to be depending on other things. And one of the main things that we're doing is we're investing. We're having a lot of investment, and to make sure that things go all right. As I said, the main investment we did was in education. And this is the challenge, and these are the youth that in the future will be running the country and will make sure that our economy stays stable.
When you arrived earlier in the week, you had an op-ed in the New York Times, and in that you described the root cause of terrorism to be hopelessness among the youth. How do you see empowering youth in the region? Right now we estimate there are probably 100 million young people between the ages of roughly 15 and 29 in the Arab world. How do we empower youth? How do you see yourself and your nation being a part of the solution to this?
President, when I talk about things, I like giving examples, to make things easier for everybody to understand. When we go back a few years ago, when the Arab Spring started, if you think of it, and go back 4 years, you didn't hear about any terrorist attacks, any terrorist movements. Everything was quiet. All those youth, they had, they saw their future. They had ambitions. They thought that they're going to have a better future when they did when they started this Arab Spring. Now, the problem that we're facing now is the counter-revolution. We call it a counter-revolution. People call it other names, but we call it counter-revolution. Now, if those youth, we don't give them a chance in participating and sharing power, because this is what they wanted. They wanted dignity and freedom. If we don't make them participate and put them in jail or no jobs, this is what I call hopeless. They will be looking for other things. Now, going back to giving examples, some of the youth that stood up against leaders, dictators, they were moderate Muslims, but they were moderate. They believe in living together. They believe in democracy. After the counter-revolution, some of them, unfortunately, went to terrorist groups, and we have them by name. And we know which party they were, and they were not even an Islamist party before. So this is when I mean hopeless. You know, you have to give them hope for the future. This is what I meant in that. And we don't, of course, I don't like saying that because I'm Muslim, but you know, we should never tie terrorists with our religion, because terrorism doesn't have a religion. Every religion had terrorist movement one day in history. So we shouldn't tie this to our religion. But hope is the most important thing we should give to our youth.
Your visit comes at a time in the United States where we're very focused on trying to determine what's the most appropriate response to the threats in Syria, particularly from ISIS. Did your visit here to the U.S. give you some sense of an approach that will make sense for us as we go forward in addressing this challenge?
Okay, Syria, we have to, when I spoke with the officials here, we have to identify and see the real cause of those terrorist movements. When the Syrian people stood up against Bashar al-Assad, asking for freedom, dignity. You can go back and you can check. There weren't, all of them were youth asking for dignity and freedom, and there wasn't any terrorist movement. We said that from day one. If Bashar al-Assad doesn't find a solution in solving this problem, we will be facing terrorist movement, because the way how he was treating his people, killing his people, young people, if we don't find a solution, we will be dealing with, we will find terrorist groups that nobody can control. Now, it's important for people to understand how this thing started in Syria. They were asking for freedom, dignity. 15 kids or 12 kids in the age of 12, 13, 14 just wrote on the wall, "Leave Bashar al-Assad, you have to leave." They were put in jail. Some of them, their nails were taken off. And those are young boys and boys. Now, if you're gonna see your child being treated like that, just because he did something small on the wall, and you forgive the regime, but you ask just for your child to come back. And then after that few days, the regime start killing his own people. What do we all expect this atmosphere? What will this atmosphere create? It will create terrorist movements that we are facing now. Now, what I always say, and I also told that to the president, yes, it's important that we have to face terrorist movement. It's a threat to us and to all of us, to everybody. But we have to see what caused all this. And we have to make sure that if we're going to fight these groups, that these groups don't come back again. Because if we fight them and we leave the main reason, they'll come back again in the near future. So it is difficult, but we have to face two things. There is the regime that's killing his own people, and there is those terrorist groups. Unfortunately now, in Syria, there is terrorist groups and there's regime. People tend to forget those millions in the middle that demanded for their freedom, who are the important people, who we should all support in the future of Syria. This is how I see things in Syria.
And do you have a sense today that a collective will and a collective strategy is emerging to address this combination?
There is, but I'll be honest with you, we shouldn't only be depending on America. Us, Arab countries, we should do our own work. And then we should ask the Americans if we need help to help us solve our problems. The problem that we've been saying, we've been always blaming the Americans. Yes, the Americans, they have their mistakes. I have my point of view, a different point of view, but we have to depend on ourselves as well, as Arab countries. We have the capability to be solid together, to be facing those terrorist movements, and also to be helping those population for their freedom. And then we can ask the help of America to help us in this. But there is a sense, yes, what I've been hearing from the officials here, that the regime in Syria lost legitimacy. They know that, and they are worried about terrorist movements. But we all forget that there are millions of people in the middle that are the people that we have to bet on and to help.
We asked members of the audience to write out some questions while they were in line waiting to come in, and so I've got a few of those here. So let me let me take these on. The first one comes from someone from Qatar. As someone who calls Qatar home, how can we work to get away from the negative media coverage and show the world that we stand as a nation to make a difference according to our vision? What is government policy and how can we contribute to addressing it?
It's a good question. There have been some negative things in the media about Qatar, and for me, honestly speaking, I don't have a problem when somebody criticizes me or criticizes our policy. We're fine with that, and we have friends that do that as well. But what hurts me sometimes is when you see something in the media which is not true about my country. Now, the way how we've been dealing, we don't have a response. We used to say, no, what they say is not true. Sorry for this language, it's rubbish, so we're not going to answer them. People know the policy of Qatar, which it's not true. People listen to the media and listen to read the newspaper. If we don't go and talk to the people and to show them what is the policy of my country, whether you agree or you don't agree, but I have to show you the policy of my country, and then you can judge. But if we give chance for others to write on our behalf, of course, you guys will believe what they say because we're not responding. But now, you know, as a Qatari student or somebody living here asking me this question, it's an important question, but we are doing everything now to make sure that our voices be listened by the media and by all our friends, because I know that we have lots of friends. But they tell us, guys, we cannot help you if you don't help yourself. So this is what we're doing now. That's why I'm here. That's why I have to visit friends in Washington. That's why I'm meeting with media people. That's why I'm honored to be meeting faculty and students here to talk about our policy. At the end, we will disagree and we'll agree. But I want you to know from me and from our people what exactly that we're doing. Some things said in the media, negative. And as I said, I don't have any problem with it, but you have to listen to our voice, and then you can judge by yourself what people say about Qatar.
So the World Cup in 2022, shameless plug for Georgetown. We have two of the great soccer programs. Our men and women's soccer programs are among the best in the United States, but that's not relevant to my question. So there's some controversy, but it also has great significance, I think, as you move forward in presenting your country to the world. First, tell us what the World Cup means for your country, and second, how do you defend your country against allegations of cheating to get the World Cup?
Well, there's been lots of talks about the World Cup, about the World Cup happening in Qatar. Even former World Cups, why did it go to this country, didn't go to the other country? You know how important soccer is and sports is. We are very proud that we're going to be hosting the World Cup in 2022. I think the main reason that we were successful in hosting this World Cup is because, and we believe in that, is that this World Cup is for all the Arabs, not for Qatar. If it was for Qatar, we will not be successful. We said that this whole World Cup is for all the Arabs, and that's why we're successful. It's a big challenge. And those allegations, as I said, you know, I'm not going to just go and any person says anything about Qatar, I'm going to answer. There's a FIFA, and they had people investigating and everything. They investigated with everybody, all the officials that we have in Qatar, and they found out that there was nothing about Qatar. Now, it's bad to say that the race was between Qatar and America to host the World Cup 2022. And I know that you guys, people here were very upset that how come this small country can beat this great country. But I think you should be, you're all sportive, you should believe that, you know, you can lose sometimes, and you shouldn't stand. No, serious. And there's something, I don't know if it's polite to say or something, after winning the World Cup, when I was waiting to host, to welcome the delegation, I was in the airport. So one guy came to me and asked me, he said, President Obama said that the World Cup shouldn't go to Qatar, it should go to America. I don't know if he said it or not. My answer was, what was my answer? Yeah, God forgive him for saying that. That was my answer. But I think, you know, this World Cup is very important for our nation, and you guys should support it, because you don't know how important that this World Cup brought all the Arab together. If you see children from Libya, from Egypt, from all around the Arab world crying because we won the World Cup. And the same thing as a Qatari will do if any other nation will win the World Cup. So it's very important for us.
And the plans are proceeding?
Yes, everything is going well.
Great.
Everything is going well.
Great. So here's the third question from our audience. Given the recent spat with the Gulf Cooperation Council and the conflict with Egypt, Qatar has come under fire for alleged intervention in the affairs of other Arab countries. With these events, what do you see as Qatar's role in the GCC and the Arab world as a whole?
Qatar plays a big role in the GCC like other GCC countries. This question has been asked to me many times. We had different views on Egypt. We all agree that Egypt is an important country. Egypt should be stable, and it's not up to me or up to the Americans or up to the GCC who chooses who runs Egypt. The people of Egypt are responsible of choosing their president. Now, there is a government there. We have differences with them, but we all agree that this government has to be stable. Now, instead of asking help from outside, I always say that this government should help itself before. Then we can help the Egyptians. But my policy is to make sure if there's anything that I can help to stabilize situation in Egypt, I will do so. We had differences between Qatar and some GCC countries concerning our approach to Egypt. We don't interfere in Egypt. We never interfered in Egypt. But what we did is when a government was elected, we stood by the government. And what happened in 30th of June, we believe it was wrong, and it could have done in another way. They could have done another election, but the way how it happened was wrong. Now, this is the past. Now, we should look in the future now. What will this government do? At the end, we are there. If there's any help that we can do, we will be happy to help. And no, it's our duty to help, actually.
So we know we're your last stop in Washington before heading on to your next leg of your U.S. tour. So this will be our last question for this morning. First, thank you for supporting the Arab Language and Olive program at Washington Latin Public Charter School. What is your vision for education and intercultural exchange in Qatar? What is the role of Arab language instruction? What would you like U.S. students to learn about Qatar and Qatari culture?
Well, first of all, anything that will support Arab language, I'm always the first one to be supportive. So we will always be happy to support this great language. What do I want people to learn about my culture? Well, my culture is among a culture of the Arab Peninsula. It's a great culture, and by learning the language, you will understand the culture more. Talking about Arabic, Mr. President, something very important that I personally worked on with my staff in Doha. We had some classes in schools and universities that were taught in English. And I said that we have a great language, and it's a very important language. There are good examples around the world that they teach everything in their language. So why don't we do it in Arabic? There was a big debate, but we're successful now. All the language, all the classes are taught in Arabic. So this is how I look into my Arabic language. It's very important, and we hope if there's anything that we can add and help for people, American people, to learn this language, we'll be happy to do so.
Thank you. So that was our last question. I want to thank you for your presence here today and wish you the very best for the rest of your trip here in the United States. I want to express my gratitude to all here in the audience for being a part of our conversation today, and I'm grateful for your presence. I'd ask that our delegation, our special guests from Qatar, leave as we exit the stage. And again, I want to thank you for being here, and I wish you the very best.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot, President. Thank you very much.